This isn't just another tale of wealth and betrayal. It's the poignant story of Sarah Miller, the small-town girl from Ohio who walked in glittering ballrooms while scrimping to buy a day-old donut. In the heart of Chicago, amidst the St. Patrick's Day parade confetti and whispers of high society, she discovered that the glare of the spotlight can hide the most silent hunger. Settle in, because in the next few minutes, you'll taste the bitter flavor of control, the sweet aroma of resistance, and the strength of someone who decides to serve her own dignity at the table. If this story resonates with you, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment telling us what city you're watching from. Your voice makes all the difference. Now get ready. We're all ears and ready to hear what you have to say, Mrs. Miller.
Oh, honey, I'm so glad you came. Sit right here close. Are you comfortable there? I hope you have a little time to listen to this old woman. You know, I have so many things stored up in here, stories that need to be told. Sometimes it hurts to remember, but I need to get it out. What a relief to have you here to listen to me. These were years that made me who I am, that broke me and rebuilt me. There were dark days, endless nights. Prepare yourself, dear. It's not an easy story to hear, but it's about how I discovered that true wealth isn't kept in vaults, but in the warmth of a well-made pot of chili. The spotlights were still gleaming on the dance floor of the Drake Hotel when the waiter swept up the stray green confetti, but I already felt the cloying scent of gardenias mixing with the emptiness in my stomach. A few hours earlier, hidden in the pantry, I had chewed on the last stale piece of donut. It was March, St. Patrick's Day season in Chicago, and my husband, Richard Sterling, a telecommunications tycoon and master of charming society columnists, raised my hand playfully, like he was showing off a trophy. "My wife is the Sterling family diamond," he announced. Applause, flashes, and the clinking of champagne glasses drowned out the even louder sound of my credit card being declined that morning at the corner deli in Wrigleyville. I was born Sarah Miller, daughter of a teacher and an accountant, into a simple but respectable family in the suburbs of Cincinnati. I grew up among books and balanced budgets, learning the value of hard work and independence. Mom always said that a woman needed to have her own money, no matter how small. Dad agreed, silent but firm. I studied English at Northwestern, gave private tutoring, and had my modest but independent salary until I met Richard at a university fundraiser. He was everything I wasn't. Heir to a business empire, a frequenter of circles I only saw in magazines. At first, his gestures seemed protective and caring. He wanted to pay my bills, manage my investments, save me from worries. I, with 40 years barely behind me and a stable career as a university professor, let myself be seduced not only by the man, but by the promise of security he represented. "Financial control is protection, dear," he whispered later as he discreetly shredded my bank statement. But I felt that this was the password to my prison. By Easter, cracks were already showing on the facade. Married for just over 6 months, I realized what it meant to be the Sterling family diamond, a valuable ornament, but one that did not belong to itself. While he exchanged anxious messages about falling stocks, I noticed that he was scribbling in a little blue notebook the price of every deviled egg served on the family table. "Investment," he murmured when he saw my confused look. That domestic balance sheet turned into a foreboding. Increasingly, Richard controlled not only the big expenses, but the small, everyday ones. Decisions about my professional life, once only mine, now had to pass through his scrutiny. "A lady in your position doesn't need to work so much," he said frequently, as if my identity had been swallowed up by the new last name. It was also in those days that I found, in a forgotten trunk in the penthouse in Lincoln Park, my grandmother, Evelyn's recipe book, stained with flour. The tiny, delicate handwriting, the pages yellowed by time, reconnected me with who I was. Grandma, a strong woman from the Midwest, knew how to turn a few ingredients into meals for many people. "The big pot always has another scoop," she used to say. On a stifling night, with the air conditioner rattling, I got up silently and cooked up a steaming pot of chili. The buzzing of the stove seemed like a defiant beat, and the coarse salt crackling on my tongue reignited my spirit. Each day I felt my freedom slipping away like sand through my fingers. The bank transfers dwindled to nothing. My cell phone, once private, now came with itemized bills for family control. My clothes, chosen for events where I was more display than participant, gradually, like water eroding stone, I felt my identity identity dissolving. The college professor, the independent woman, the Sarah I used to be, faded further into the past. I stopped teaching at his request. Temporarily, he assured me. But months passed, and excuses for not returning piled up. My old colleagues at the university called less and less. My former friends seemed awkward around my new life, and the wives of Richard's business partners were polite but distant. The days dragged on with social events and small domestic indignities. My credit cards revoked. Justifications for every purchase. The growing feeling of being a guest in my own home. The loneliness pressed in like a dress 2 sizes too small, until 2 opposing forces struck me. Real, physical hunger, hidden behind the perfect wife's smile, and the ancestral memory of my grandmother, who survived hard times with dignity and a handful of hope. The video of my speech went viral like wildfire. Someone in the audience recorded it on their phone, shared it in Facebook groups, and soon it was circulating among women from all walks of life. As summer burst into bloom across the country, my phone vibrated non-stop with notifications and messages of support. Richard returned from Washington, D.C., angrier than I'd ever seen him. His usually composed face was red, veins throbbing in his temples. He threw the phone on the living room table, displaying the video that already had thousands of views. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" he roared. "How many deals? How many doors you've closed with this charade?" I instinctively shrank back into the Italian leather couch he prized so much. Years of conditioning made me feel guilty for expressing my truth, for existing beyond the limits he had set. The retaliation was swift and merciless. He changed passwords, canceled my credit cards, instructed the housekeeper to log my every move, forbade online shopping, and even gave me counted-out change for basic necessities, always demanding receipts and exact change. "It's for your own good, Sarah. You clearly can't handle money or our social standing." The following weeks were a mix of confinement and surveillance. The housekeeper, Mrs. Johnson, watched me with a look divided between pity and duty. The driver received instructions to record every place he dropped me off. The manicurist, the hairdresser, even the staff at the local bakery. Everyone in my routine were instructed to report any concerning behavior. My phone had apps removed, contacts blocked. The Wi-Fi password was changed without telling me the new one. I tried using the landline when Richard was out, but soon discovered that the calls were being monitored. "It's for your protection," he repeated as we ate dinner in silence in the spacious dining room of the penthouse. "You're vulnerable, confused. I don't want anyone taking advantage of you." I began counting the days by Richard's meetings, the television shows, the housekeeper's visits. The world outside seemed distant, inaccessible. Sometimes from the balcony, I watched people on the street, walking briskly, talking, living, and felt an envy so profound it physically hurt. At night, alone in the king-size bed, I remembered the life I had, the classroom where my thoughts were valued, the students who looked at me with respect, the bank account, modest but mine, the freedom to buy a book without answering questions, to meet friends without justifications. Then, touched by my speech, 4 wives of businessmen found ways to break through the blockade. First, there were discreet notes delivered by florists or waiters at social events. Then, coded messages suggesting a quiet tea to discuss a supposed charity event. We met in dim light in a private room at the Plaza Hotel in NYC, the petit fours crumbling on delicate china plates and the crystal chandeliers reflecting our collective fear. Nervous glances constantly checked the door, fingers drummed on porcelain cups. "I'm also trapped in a golden cage," confessed Emily, wife of a renowned real estate developer. "My husband controls how many tampons I buy each month. I get an allowance like a teenager," added Karen, whose husband owned a chain of hospitals. At 55 years old, we nicknamed ourselves the Invisible Janes, each with an alias on simple apps, arranging meetups at diners in Queens and Brooklyn. We became experts in codes and excuses, in hiding cash in purse linings, in passing information through Avon ladies or drugstore delivery guys. To get around his control, I spent the whole of July collecting spare change found in old coats, sold, a pair of party heels through one of the cleaning ladies, and with Donna's help, opened a cloned LLC under her social security number, sweating bullets in front of the IRS clerk. The small business was registered as Grandma Betty's Comfort Food, meals of affection for lonely old folks in the Little Italy neighborhood. "It's risky, Lisa," Donna warned as we signed the papers. "He could find out. More risky is continuing. Without anywhere to go," I replied, hearing a strength in my voice I hadn't recognized for a long time, using pots and pans inherited from my grandmother, which I'd stored stored at the back of a closet when we moved into the penthouse, I began to produce the first orders. I cooked between 2 sons and 5 Rams a.m. When Jack was sound asleep after his nightly ritual of expensive scotch and sleeping pills, I packed the chili in reused containers, sprinkled thyme on the lid to disguise the smell, and left before the doorman woke up, leaving the meals with Donna, who made the deliveries. The first few weeks were a constant terror. At every noise in the kitchen, I imagined Jack finding out everything. At every suspicious glance from the housekeeper, I felt my heart race. But when the first payment arrived, deposited in the secret account Donna opened for me, something changed. It wasn't much money, but it was mine. Earned with my hands, my knowledge, my courage. "Mrs. Lisa, your cooking reminds me of my mother's," said Mrs. Mancini, one of the first customers, in a message sent by Donna. "I haven't had chicken pot pie this good in years." Those words lit a fire in me that I thought was extinguished. The recognition for my work, not for my appearance or social standing, was like water in the desert. With every compliment that Donna passed on to me, with every new order, I felt growing inside me not just confidence, but something more valuable, hope. At the secret Invisible Janes meetings, I began to share not only laments, but strategies. I taught them how to hide small amounts in improbable places, in empty medicine bottles, in the linings of flip-flops, in hollowed-out pages of books their husbands would never read. I showed them how to create a discreet support network with other women, how to document abuse without leaving traces. "Every penny counts," I explained to the other Janes. "It's not just money, it's freedom in the form of change." August, however, brought cold winds and a surprise inspection. Jack's accountant was confused by the gas expenses on the monthly bill. It was triple the usual amount. When questioned during dinner, I said that I was testing new recipes to liven up the house and impress his partners at upcoming dinners. "What a waste," he grumbled. But the explanation seemed to convince him momentarily. Meanwhile, orders grew. From 5 meals a week, I went to 15, then 30. The Janes helped me get new customers, seniors who lived alone, workers who didn't have time to cook, families who wanted home-cooked meals without preservatives. Donna, tireless, managed deliveries and payments. For the first time in years, I began to dream of possibilities. Maybe one day I could have my own space, my own kitchen, away from Jack's oppressive control. Maybe I could recover not only my financial independence, but my identity. With every meal prepared, with every recipe recovered from Grandma Betty's notebook, I reconnected with the woman I once was and glimpsed the woman I could become again. That same night, Chelsea, the stepdaughter who saw me as a gold digger since the wedding, arrived for a vacation without prior notice. Tall, slender, with the same piercing eyes as her father, she landed in the penthouse carrying expensive suitcases and old distrusts. At 28 years old, an executive at one of the family group's companies, she had always made it clear that she considered me an opportunist who had taken advantage of her father's loneliness after her mother's death. "Lisa," she greeted me dryly, allowing only a formal kiss on the cheek. "Dad said you've been acting out." I swallowed hard, smiling politely as the housekeeper took her bags. I immediately perceived Jack's strategy. Chelsea would be my new watchman, another layer of control. Her presence disrupted my covert routine. I couldn't bake late at night with the same freedom anymore. Ashley suffered from insomnia and wandered around the apartment at unpredictable hours. Orders started piling up. Customers began questioning delays. Teresa tried to smooth things over, but I felt the fragile house of cards about to collapse. On the 3rd night, the inevitable happened. Ashley accidentally stumbled upon the chat for the hidden gems on my cell phone, which I'd carelessly left on the kitchen counter. I'd only been distracted for a few minutes while checking a batch of chocolate chip cookies I planned to deliver the next morning. "What are you plotting? Against my father?" she snapped, her eyes hard as flint, holding my phone like evidence of a crime. I trembled, but something inside me, maybe the same impulse that made me speak up at the charity auction, gave me courage. "I'm plotting to be seen," I replied simply. She laughed, a dry, incredulous sound. "Seen? With $500,000, jewelry, designer clothes, and a penthouse on the Upper East Side. Have you ever wondered why your mother kept a secret account in Switzerland?" The words slipped out before I could stop them. It was a secret Charles had revealed to me during a drunken evening about how his late wife hid money, fearing his control. Ashley's face paled. "You're lying," she whispered, but the doubt was already planted. In the following days, we established a tense truce. She didn't mention the incident to her father, but she watched me constantly, analyzing every move with new eyes. I realized she was now studying me more than judging me. The next morning, Ashley inadvertently witnessed recalled Charles berating the housekeeper over a chipped glass. Her father's arrogance cracked her armored admiration. The young maid, almost a girl from upstate, trembled as he listed every broken item in recent months, coldly calculating the deductions from her already meager salary. "Dad, don't you think that's excessive?" Ashley dared to ask. "Don't interfere in how I manage my household," he replied dryly. That small exchange caused fissures in the father-daughter relationship. Ashley began to notice patterns she'd previously ignored. How he spoke to me, how he controlled the staff, how he turned affection into a bargaining chip. Even so, she resisted, investigated, rummaged through drawers when we weren't looking, until she found my small ledger of catering orders hidden inside a dusty Bible. She confronted me in the guest room, where I was organizing ingredients for the next day. "This is illegal," she pointed out, showing me the notebook. "You're using someone else's social security number, evading taxes, deceiving my father. It's survival," I argued without denying it. "Do you have any idea what it's like to live without the right to buy a box of tampons without having to account for it?" Something in my words touched a nerve, perhaps a memory of her own mother, perhaps stories she'd heard and ignored. After a long silence, she returned my notebook. "I'm going to keep an eye on you," she warned, but her voice had lost some of its previous hostility. Days later, an anonymous envelope arrived at Ashley's office. Inside, an invitation to one of the Hidden Gems gatherings. She hesitated, tore the paper, but curiosity got the better of her. She attended, hidden behind sunglasses and a discreet scarf. There she heard stories that seemed like blurry reflections of her own home, her own mother, and something began to shift in her gaze. September brought a nasty virus to Charles. While he raved feverishly, the housekeeper called me in a panic. "Ms. Laura, the doctor only trusts you." It was ironic how, even while controlling me, he needed my care. Sitting at his bedside, applying cool compresses to his hot forehead, I felt a confusing mix of compassion and resentment. "It's okay, Charles. It will pass," I murmured as he tossed and turned between nightmares and fever. In those days of illness, the barriers of control loosened. With him debilitated, I had access to places previously forbidden: his office, his documents, his phone. In the bedside table drawer, I found the small blue notebook that had intrigued me so much. Lists with the date, amount, and the word cost next to my name. Wedding dress, sapphire earrings, birthday dinner. Every gesture I thought was love was coldly catalogued as an investment. I felt the paper grow cold in my fingers. Premonition confirmed. It was time to jump. "What are you doing?" Ashley's voice startled me. She was standing in the doorway watching me with the notebook in my hands. "Finding out what I cost," I replied simply. I handed her the notebook, and she flipped through it with growing silence. Pages and pages detailing every penny spent on me, with comments about the expected return in terms of social prestige, business contacts, public image. On the last page, a disturbing conclusion. "Laura, investment with diminishing returns?" My mom had a notebook like that too, dedicated to her, confessed Claire, her voice thick with emotion. "I found it after she died. That revelation sealed an unexpected alliance. In the following days, while Alan slowly recovered, Claire and I talked like never before. I shared my plans for independence, my small savings, the dream of having my own catering business. To my surprise, she not only understood, but offered to help. "He did this to my mom for 30 years, she explained one afternoon, while we pretended to review medical bills in the living room. She tried to leave twice. The second time, he threatened to take me away. She stayed, but she was never the same. I realized then that Claire wasn't an enemy, but another victim, a child who grew up watching her father turn love into control, affection into transactions. I was short on a co-signer for the simple studio apartment I'd found in the Lower East Side, the walls peeling, but the windows letting in the sounds of the city. Claire immediately offered, "I can sign as a guarantor, using a secondary LLC he doesn't monitor," she explained. "He'll never find out the connection." To raise the initial capital, I sold my sapphire earrings at a jewelry store in Midtown. The clerk appraised them, let out a whistle, and paid in cash. With the money, I put down the security deposit, bought a cheap mattress, and rented a U-Haul to hold 2 suitcases of clothes, a portable stove, and Grandma Sylvia's old recipe book. When I announced the decision to Alan, now recovered from his flu, his face transformed into a mask of contained fury. First, he tried to ridicule my idea, "You won't survive a week without me," then threaten, "I'll freeze all the accounts," until finally, realizing my determination, he delivered the final blow. "If you walk out that door, I'm canceling your mother's health insurance." A wave of shock surged up my neck. I remembered Mrs. Evans, 87, dependent on physical therapy after a recent stroke. joke. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his words. Then I'll pay for it, I replied, holding out the jewelry store receipt. His eyes widened. He wasn't prepared for my own money, for the idea that I had secured resources without his knowledge or permission. That moment, that look of surprise and loss of control was worth every late night spent between pots and secret recipes. I left with my heart pounding, taking few material things but carrying Grandma's shell in my hand, a symbol of my most valuable inheritance, the ability to feed myself and others, to create abundance even in the most adverse circumstances. The gossip came like a dust cloud. I had barely stepped out of the penthouse on Fifth Avenue, and rumors were already circulating through the social circles of Manhattan. Alan, a master of narrative control, had spread convenient versions of my departure, emotional instability, ingratitude, even insinuations about a supposed lover. The doors of high society closed in sequence, one after the other. Invitations disappeared, phone calls ceased, greetings became distant nods. "You need to sue this man," insisted Teresa, as she helped me organize the small space of the studio apartment. "What he's doing is defamation." "I don't have the energy or money for lawsuits," I replied, stretching a worn sheet over the thin mattress. "My fight now is different. I spent nights on that mattress, listening to motorcycles tearing down the avenue, distant sirens, the urban pulse of a city that never fully sleeps, so different from the aseptic silence of the penthouse with its thick walls and soundproof windows. There, exposed to the sounds of real life, I rediscovered the rhythm of the common world, the one that most people inhabit without realizing its value. Each container of food sealed at dawn was a brick in the construction of my new home, not physical but existential. I started delivering some orders personally, meeting clients, listening to their stories. Many were lonely seniors who valued the food as much as the brief company during the delivery. "Laura, this mac and cheese tastes like my childhood," commented. "Mr. Johnson, a retiree who lived alone on the Lower East Side, reminds me of my mom back in Montana." Those words nourished something beyond my tight budget. They nourished my soul, tired of social pretenses and practiced smiles. As the end of October neared, Amelia, once a ghostly woman and retired lawyer, officially filed the paperwork to create an association called Second Chance Sisters, offering basic finance workshops and support groups at community centers in the Bronx. What started as a clandestine mutual aid group was now gaining traction, taking shape with an inn and a bank account. "We need to institutionalize this network," Amelia argued. "Give concrete tools to women who are where we once were." One of the sisters filed for divorce after 32 years of a controlling marriage. Another started taking piano lessons again after 4 decades, rekindling a dream she abandoned in her youth. Small yet grand revolutions happening behind the scenes of the city. Claire, now torn between filial love and growing outrage, offered her digital marketing expertise to promote not only my meal prep business, but also the work of Second Chance. "Sisters, my dad can't know about my involvement," she explained, always cautious. "Not yet. He'd control my access to the family businesses, and I'm gathering evidence of some irregularities that could help other women in the same situation." We recorded short videos showcasing regional spices, classic American cooking techniques, and the nutritional and emotional value of well-prepared food. The scent of cinnamon and nutmeg seemed to reach through the screen, and views grew organically. The bills were still tight at the end of the month. My mom's health insurance ate up a significant portion of my earnings. Rent, utilities, ingredients for the meal preps. Everything was calculated with mathematical precision to avoid going into the red. But this dignified poverty had a taste of freedom that jewels and designer dresses never gave me. On rainy nights, when the dripping faucet kept my loneliness company, I wondered if I had made the right choice. If it wouldn't have been wiser to endure, negotiate, pretend. Then I'd grab the little blue notebook I brought with me, the one where Michael cataloged how much I cost, and the determination would return, unshakable as the mountains surrounding the city. "I'm priceless," I whispered to myself, falling asleep to the sound of rain on the simple shingled roof. "I'm not an investment. I'm Laura." In December, I accepted an invitation to speak at the Union Square Holiday Market. Among booths selling Vermont cheddar, craft beer, and the twang of a bluegrass band, rehearsing "Will the Circle Be Unbroken?" I told my story without hiding the tremor in my voice. The audience was different from the charity auction crowd. Ordinary people, workers, small business owners who understood the value of sweat and independence firsthand. "I'm 60 years old and I'm starting over," I confessed into the makeshift microphone. "And I'm discovering discovering that it's never too late to be the master of your own destiny. When the yellowish lights reflected on the market's old brick floor, and sweat mingled with the steam of chili bubbling in demo pots, I saw women with teary eyes, some holding reusable grocery bags full of greens. I recognized in them possible versions of my future, simple but dignified women, carrying in their calloused hands the weight and beauty of their own history. After the talk, a host from WNYC Radio pulled me aside. She wanted a weekly segment for conversations about dignity in aging, comfort food, and stories of reinvention. I accepted, feeling the rough texture of my new apron, sewn by one of the sisters, brush against my fingers, reminding me that there were threads of courage from many women intertwined there. Cooking and Freedom with Laura Mendez, the host proposed. Every Thursday at 10 in the morning. What do you think? In the following weeks, listeners began to call in, share their stories, ask for advice not just on cooking, but on independence, self-esteem, and small businesses. I received invitations to speak at vocational schools, community associations, even at Columbia University, my old workplace. The university professor that Michael had tried to erase was resurfacing, now enriched by experiences that no academic title could provide. Christmas arrived. The studio apartment sparkled with lights bought on layaway. The scent of apple cider donuts filled the hallway, and the first official meeting of the Second Chance Sisters approved a revolving microloan fund for members. My meal preps now reached over 100 weekly clients, and I hired 2 assistants, women in vulnerable situations referred by the network itself. The big pot always has room for another spoonful, I repeated, echoing the wisdom of Grandma Sylvia. On New Year's Eve, I received a sealed envelope. Inside was a generous check and a handwritten note. For Mom Eunice's health insurance. This isn't a loan, it's restitution. Signed, C. It was from Clarice, who continued her quiet investigation into her father's business, collecting evidence of tax irregularities that could one day be used as leverage for other women trapped in controlling marriages. I still wake up too early, collect bills to pay, carry the fear of starting over at 60. But when I lift the heavy lid of the pot of grits and the aroma of sizzling bacon rises up, I understand that every victory demands sweat, sold sapphire, jewelry, nights without invitations, and it's worth it. Alvaro remains in his glass palace, tracking investments. He occasionally sends formal messages about financial settlements, which I reciprocate with receipts for Mom's health insurance payments, religiously up to date. Our occasional encounters at city events are brief, polite, distant, like 2 strangers who shared a life in another universe. One afternoon in January, exactly a year after that charity auction that changed everything, I received a mysterious box in my studio apartment. Inside, carefully wrapped, was Grandma Sylvia's serving spoon, the original, in ornate silver, which had remained in Alvaro's house when I left. A small note accompanied it. This is rightfully yours. It belongs to your story. There was no signature, but I recognized Teresa's handwriting. I held that spoon against my chest, feeling its physical and symbolic weight. It had returned to me, just like my voice, my identity, my right to exist beyond imposed limits. Like that simple but fundamental utensil, I had also rediscovered my purpose: to serve, to feed, to nurture, not out of obligation or fear, but out of choice and love. Today, the spoon is mine, and the sound I hear is no longer the beep of a declined card, but the clatter of Tupperware lids banging like bells, announcing that I am, at last, the master of my plate, my time, and my story.